Welcome to Business in the Age of Aquarius, Passion, Purpose, and Magic in Your Soul's Work virtual retreat, where we explore the rise of ideals, consciousness, and humanity in entrepreneurship. I'm your host for this event, Theresa Pridemore, owner of Sovereign Spirit, and I'm delighted to introduce you to today's guest, Flora Ware. Hi, Flora.
Hello, hello. So happy to be here, Theresa.
Oh, it's so delightful to have you. Thank you for joining us. Flora coaches spiritual entrepreneurs to become confident speakers and savvy business leaders so they get booked on podcasts and stages, attracting more clients by sharing their sacred work with the world. As founder of Earth Song Temple, she serves a global community of women as a ceremonial priestess, pagan songstress, vocal coach, and cyclic living teacher. Flora attended her first women's circle in 1993 and has been on a spiritual path of devotion to the divine feminine ever since. She's deeply connected to her Celtic ancestral roots, and honoring the rhythms of the sun and moon is a keystone in her earth-based spirituality. In addition to moon rituals and deep conversations with her soul sisters, Flora loves hiking, swimming, dancing, singing, and eating anything covered in pesto. She lives in Vernon, BC, Canada, with her wife and young wizard in training. You can visit her online at floraware.ca. And our topic is Silent No More, Leading with Your Voice and Your Values. Really love this topic. It's something I feel very passionate about in the work I do, although we work in different areas, but I'm so excited that you're bringing this to the fore. So tell me, Flora, why are you so passionate about women's voices?
That's a great place to start. I suppose I should be clear. I'm passionate about voices.
Yeah.
I'm really passionate about people feeling, everyone and anyone feeling confident to express themselves through the vocal channel, whether that's speaking or singing.
Mhm.
But in particular, we all know that women's voices, especially, have been oppressed, have been outright silenced, have been dismissed and minimized for thousands and thousands of years. So at this really, I think, an important point in history, certainly a very interesting time in history, I'm really passionate about helping women heal that channel, because there's so many layers of the of trauma and just the conditioning that have kept us muted and have kept us from feeling like we're allowed to express ourselves or that it's safe to do so. And since we all are born with this incredible instrument of our voice, I really feel like it's everyone's birthright to use this instrument of communication, of healing, and of manifestation. So
Mm.
that's why I love voices.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is. It's very interesting, especially at this time in history. I feel like growing up, I felt like women were getting more and more opportunity to use their voices, and then we're going through this weird time in the last few years where women are getting silenced again. So this is extremely important and relevant right now. Well, I mean, it always is, but even more so now, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think that what we're seeing is really, it's all part of the just natural evolution and growth, right? We
Hmm.
know that it's like we have these expansions and then we have these contractions. So when we
Hmm.
see, what we think is progress, especially at the political level, the policy making
Hmm.
arena, we can see this progress and we go, yeah, right on. And then it just seems like months later, or even the following year, there's this contraction. So it's all
Hmm.
part of the growing pains.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It takes, you have the long view of history that it takes to actually sometimes really get something full circle. And yeah, yeah. So, I'm like with you. It's really incredibly important and important for people who actually it's interesting. I mean, this isn't really part of what we're talking about, but the oppression of women's voices, it hurts everyone who's oppressing them too. So it takes an extra layer of I don't know, a revolution, I guess, for us to own that so that we can even free perpetrators. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, you
energetically.
bring up a really good point. That's absolutely true. It's not just women that are
Mm-hmm.
suffering. We all are, and more men are really waking up to this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like that this isn't helpful for the greater good when we're denying women's voices, we're denying women's wisdom
Mm-hmm.
and dismissing it and not including that in part of our decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly it affects our children, the family units. There's so many implications.
Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot for us to actually like take ownership of our voice no matter what's going on around us. So
Mm.
that's like that important work. And I love that you're also a vocal coach, because that kind of work is also healing. Like you can claim your voice in so many different ways, and to actually like work with the voice and to learn how to use the voice more effectively in that way too is, and it's just a powerful thing. I'm sure that you love doing that work.
Well, I do, and I started singing even before I started speaking,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of babies really do, and I know that I had the advantage, the privilege of having both parents be feminists, really,
Mm-hmm.
hippies and environmentalists, and already very spiritual. Both of them had left the churches that their families had been in, and I was born in the late 70s, whoop whoop, and so that we see that in children that are encouraged, and that the creativity and that it's just naturally there.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times, the women that I'll work with
Mm-hmm.
feel like, how am I ever going to get over this, because they were raised to like be quiet, or not supported. And so I feel like that was it's just part of my soul gift,
Mm-hmm.
and that I can use it for good, that I still know the conditioning that tells women to be quiet, but
Mm-hmm.
because I experience less of it in my own home,
Mm-hmm.
I can, I suppose, like, shine that light and show what's possible and help other women to heal their voice.
Mm-hmm.
And also because of the extensive vocal training and experience
Yeah,
that I have, because I've really focused my life on this work.
that's amazing. You are a beautiful singer. Your music is gorgeous. I
Mm.
absolutely love the music you've recently released. Um, yeah, do you find, so I when you say you're a vocal coach, do you actually help people learn how to sing, or is that like part of like how you do your work?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So some people come to me for singing
Mm-hmm.
and for the vocal sound healing,
Mm-hmm.
and often the clients that I work with in that respect aren't singers at all.
Mm-hmm.
They're the secret singers, right?
Uh-huh.
um, and then with speaking, it tends to be more of the entrepreneurs
Okay.
that are wanting to be confident to speak, to do interviews like this,
Mm-hmm.
to feel comfortable on camera doing live videos and different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because of my theater training and my extensive stage experience, again, so I've trained my vocal instrument both for speaking and singing. And so yeah, there's different ways that I'll support people who had different goals with their
Mm-hmm.
voice.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I just think that work is so incredibly powerful. For me, like doing karaoke was actually really deeply empowering, like getting to the point where I actually enjoyed going up in front of a bunch of strangers and singing one of my favorite songs, little things like that. It's amazing how it shifts your energy, and it makes you more comfortable with claiming who you are in front of other people in a really like powerful way.
Yeah, I love that. Karaoke empowerment, definitely.
Yeah, you get to the point where you don't need the shot of whiskey to like to make it make it possible for you to get up there. You're like, I can just do this. I'm actually pretty relaxed, which is it's a revelation to get to that point. And that and that had ripple effect for me, like going out on stages and things. I also did improv, so things like this, vocal training, things like this, like actually working with someone like you to actually move through the energetic barriers that come from all that conditioning, and not being used to actually like being in front of people and being brave enough to just say, this is who I am, this is what I care about.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. And, beyond the conditioning that we get in this, growing up in this society, beyond any conditioning that someone might get from their own upbringing, their own childhood, what I really find is that a lot of us are carrying this from past lives.
Mm-hmm.
That there's what I call the witch wound.
Mm-hmm.
The witch wound that silenced so many of us.
Yeah.
That fear, so a lot of people that will say, like, almost like, I don't even understand why I'm so scared to start speaking about my healing work. Like maybe they're like me. They're said, like, I had supportive parents, and like I have a certain measure of confidence. Where is this deep-seated fear coming from? And it's a collective wounding and fear of that persecution, of fear of us experiencing harm for sharing what we know, for sharing our medicine, for sharing our magic, for speaking about what we know. And so there's it's just really fascinating when we get into this work, because there can be a lot of layers to heal.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I find that all the time, and I work myself, I'm sure you do too, with healers, practitioners, coaches, people who are stepping into thought leadership, and a lot of them are empathic people, right? So they come with a sensitivity, and I think they're more connected to those past lives where, they, even if it didn't physically harm them, they were exiled or treated poorly for it, and it stays with us, and it can be hard to release that witch wound. So yeah, it is. Sometimes we have to like move through that energy when we're actually stepping out, and it does. You're right. It can seem like it makes no sense, and we're like, why am I afraid of this? I don't understand it. And going to those places to heal it is really can be very beneficial. Yeah. Well, okay, so we're talking about using our voices, right? And connected to using our voices is actually working from our values, right? And that's what our voices allow us to do, is share our values with other people. So how do our values shape how we run our businesses?
Well, hopefully they shape them a lot. Just before we hit record, right, when you and I were chatting a bit, I was sharing how I've designed my business over the year to give me downtime in the winter and the summer, because that is what works for me and my family, and with my son's school schedule. I don't want to be really busy in the summer when he has 2 months off. So I have intentionally designed that. And as a cyclic living teacher, that is, that's part of me walking the talk in being in a rhythm with nature, right? Nowhere in nature do we see this consistent 24/7. I mean, except for the sun, right? And thank God, goddess, for the sun, right? So the sun, guess what? It's not part of our earth, right? The sun is the star at the center of our solar system. So on earth, everything's in a rhythm. Everything's in a cycle. So ebbing and flowing, waxing and waning. So that's just one example of my values and how I lead in my business and run my business with this awareness of an appreciation for cyclic living and being in that rhythm. Another value that I have is inclusivity and diversity. Being queer myself, but being very straight passing, it's something that I'm like kind of constantly coming out and making sure that that's very clear. So that it's like no one's caught off guard, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
yes, actually I'm married to a woman.
Mhm.
And so being just again out and proud about that, and I and other people find me, and I can't even tell you how many messages I've received over the years from other members of the 2S LGBTQ community saying,
Mhm.
it's so inspiring seeing you and just being really confident and out and sharing who you are, especially in the spiritual space. And I
Mhm.
think, great, that's just me, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
whatever values you have, share them. Put them
Mhm.
in your business, whether it's very direct, like, healers, healing practitioners, you value health and you value holistic balance in the body, mind, and soul, or
Mhm.
whatever it is, right? Like, you're
Mhm.
gonna you're gonna talk about that. And coming back to walking the talk, you need to make sure that you continue to stay in good health, that you
Mhm.
stay in good balance, your body, mind, and soul, so that you can show up and best serve in your business.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's ways that your values can be like very overt and obvious, and you talk about them, and even causes that you might support, charities that you might donate to with your business. Don't keep
Mhm.
that a secret. Let people
Mhm.
know, because that could attract some people to working with you, just knowing where your values are,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even this summit, that's a beautiful example how you are very open and obvious of the charity, the organization that you're supporting with
Mhm.
this summit. Like, I
Mhm.
love that, right? But then there's also the values that are a little bit more internal, that they're a little bit, just more personal, that you want to lead with, in really, it's like how you show up as a leader, and
Mhm.
you show up embodying these values.
Mhm.
So yeah, the values piece, and especially since we're here talking about business in the age of Aquarius and these Aquarian ideals, that it is around that, especially more than ever in today's age, that we can be really clear about our values, but more than that, we really should be. And I don't usually use should very often, because I don't think that there's too many things that we should all do, but this is one of them. Be
Mhm.
obvious and upfront about your values and share them.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so important. You talk about modeling, I think modeling is really key because you got to walk your talk, and people will kind of know if you're not on some level. Like we receive interest. It's interesting, like how we can read situations sometimes without even knowing. And it's easier to like actually get people to flow with you if you actually modeling what you teach. And yeah, it is interesting too. You give so many more people permission to come out for what is important to them too, if you're willing to model that and you're willing to share it and to, I mean, it's tough, like as an entrepreneur, what we find all the time, especially if you're trying to grow your community, your client base virtually, because that's like where the opportunity is to connect with a worldwide market. You have to be willing to be a leader to
Mm.
some extent. You have to own that. And that can be, again, come back to the witch wound, right? Like, sometimes it can be rough to try to like claim our leadership in a certain area, because it's like, well, who am I to do that? Why am I important? Like all these things that we might ask ourselves when we're doing that. Who's going to listen to me? Does anyone care? So those kinds of things that I think come up when we're trying to step out for our values.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because there can be that fear. So just make sure that we're actually talking about values and
Right.
not personal opinions,
Good point.
right?
Yeah.
Like, with like
Yeah.
really like getting down to the essence of what are values, maybe even looking up, like, what are considered virtues,
Mm-hmm.
and then getting really clear on what are my values, because yeah, we certainly have enough personal opinions masquerading as, factual news, or yeah, or those kinds of things. So and I think, yeah, well, no, I don't just think, I know that as entrepreneurs, and when we go into business and when we're sharing ourselves, we do have a lot of fear come up about like, what if people aren't going to like me, or they're not going to buy from me, or they don't like what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But remembering that good marketing, when you're aligned and good, and your marketing, good marketing will attract the people that are resonant with you and your offers, and is actually meant to repel away the people that aren't in alignment. And that's fine. But it's hard when those people that it's repelling are maybe your friends or your mom that's suddenly seeing all of your posts on Facebook and is not knowing what to make of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like that is kind of when you're just starting to come out, a lot of people, like, I'm sure your clients have experienced this too, like going through that phase of like, oh God, now I'm actually like gonna put this out there and everyone I know personally is gonna have a reaction to it. And it's interesting if you're like building a new kind of community for yourself and you love your family and your friends, but like they really just don't get what you're doing.
Yeah. And if that's the case, you can't let them stop you from really standing up and speaking up for what you're all about, and what your business is all about.
Yeah, that's really tough. I'm interested if you have anything to share, that's not going like any personal information, but like how you've noticed your clients like stepping into their values, things that came up for them and their journeys, like common themes that you've seen.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. And the wonderful thing that happens, Theresa, right? You probably know this. The wonderful thing that happens when we lean into our values, and when we're really clear on the core reason why we're so inspired and passionate about what we're inspired and passionate about, and to the point that we're motivated to build a business around it, right? When we are clear on what those core reasons are and those values, then it's easier for us to get out of our own way and share the message.
Yeah.
Because when we are in that place of, oh, I'm worried about how I will be received, or, like, will I be judged? What if I get some, online hater comments, or potentially even worse, a hateful comment from someone that right?
Yeah.
Not just some random stranger.
Yeah.
Is that's coming from our personality, right? It's coming from us, like the ego I, right, of us. And I'm not an enemy of the ego, right? Like it's there for us, but if we're getting in our own way, because when we remember the reason why we're doing this, and we're connected to that deeper purpose, and we're feeling inspired and motivated by our values, then we will continue to show up for it, because what we're speaking up for and standing up for is something much bigger than just us.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, in the beginning of my business, I was feeling all those feels. Oh, how will this be? Blah, blah, blah. And then it was actually Denise Duffield Thomas, who's a wonderful money mindset coach out of Australia, and her book, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch. I read years ago, and I was just like, okay, anyone who writes a book with that title, I've got to check out, And she said, like, you don't need to be the guru, be a contributing voice. Again, this voice thing, right? And it was like, it clicked for me. I said, right, I'm not the guru of all things goddess. Like, that's like the antithesis of divine feminine spirituality, is going back to this hierarchy model. Like there's one guru. Oh, and I don't know. So I just realized, right, I'm a contributing voice. I'm a PR agent for the divine feminine. This isn't about me. This isn't about Flora. I'm putting my message and my mission and my movement towards this bigger, what is it? It's just a bigger cause or issue or movement unto itself. And so that helps me get out of my own way. I see it help my clients, because it's like, right, but what's the real essence? What's the value? And then you can keep on showing up for it, because it's bigger than you or I.
That's great advice. Absolutely. Yeah. You feel it coming through you, and it is the thing that gets you inspired to get going. And you can stay connected with that divine inspiration to live in your values, to share your values, to support other people and stepping into their own true self, I guess, which is a lot of the work that a lot of us are doing on some level or another. You can remember it, like you say, it's not about you, and that changes the whole dynamic. Yeah,
it really does.
Great advice. Well, so in the age of Aquarius, I feel like we're coming into a time where the feminine is coming more to the fore in all kinds of places, and entrepreneurship is actually one of them. I don't know what the most recent stats are, but like over half of new businesses are started by women, as far as I know at this time. And it's so, there is kind of a movement happening right now. And I think that women are wanting to create unconventional lives, and they want to like claim that for themselves, and they're kind of ready to move on from all these like patriarchal ideas about how we do work, and how we do business, how we live, how we sustain ourselves and our families. So anyways, I'm curious, what do you envision is possible with more women than ever before being entrepreneurs?
World peace.
Yeah.
And I'm joking, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I in the society that we are in, business is the engine of our economy, which means that the values of the businesses that are fueling that engine of the economy, those values are what's being disseminated everywhere and perpetuated. So with more and more businesses being run by women, we are now seeing more of a return to traditionally or typically feminine values being more widespread. And so it's like this ripple effect of a deep change, like a big shift in how we how, like you said, unconventional. Well, how did the convention get made in the first place, right? Where did that convention come from, and how long has that convention even been in place? 150 years ago, the convention was working in a factory, right? Or and it depends, right? So we're business, and this is what's really exciting, because before I went into business, I didn't really think about this, but that business has the potential to make really wide sweeping societal change in terms of what we value, and really maybe more importantly, but what younger generations are growing up seeing what's possible, or thinking what's possible for them, right? My wife and I, our son is 9, and anytime we've asked him like what he thinks he might want to do when he grows up, it's always been, he's like, I'm going to start my own business. He doesn't know what it is yet. Or he says, I'm going to make an app, I think. Like he's already thinking like an entrepreneur. He's already thinking like an app developer, because that's what he's seen with us. Like, which is great too, because he doesn't even think of the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 as being the only option. Now, of course, he might land a job. It's likely that he will work a regular job at some point, but the options are there. So with more women being in business, and even beyond, this gender thing, I think, just more spiritual businesses being formed nowadays, and being obvious about it, not being like hidden about it, like all of us like in the broom closet secretly being spiritual but not wanting to be too out about it, right? We're just, it's a whole tipping of the scales, right? Because this, the rise of the divine feminine, or the return of feminine, of course, it's, I mean, maybe some of us do, but it's not like down with men, and now we will finally have the matriarchy that we love, It's more, it's like, no, can we come back into balance now? Right. And so it's really the same. More women in business, back into balance, instead of 90% of business, or even more probably back in the day, were always meant by men. if I can circle back to what you were saying about remembering to hold a longer view at times when we look at change,
Mm-hmm.
it really is important, because of course a lot of us now that we're awake, we're conscious, we see what needs to happen. Change isn't happening fast enough for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like we're like,
Yeah.
we see what needs to happen and it's not happening fast enough. But let's remember that in the early 70s, so again, the decade I was born, I think it had changed maybe by 77, which is when I was born, but a woman could not open a bank account without a male cosigner.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Right? It is not that long ago that certain things, right? So a woman had to have either her father or her husband or her brother for her to have her own bank account. So how do you think that any woman was ever going to run a business? You know how most women ended up running businesses? Because they were widows. Or they were like the only daughter. And again, it was like an inherited thing. And then everyone else had to just kind of deal with it. Like, oh no, now it's like her running the business because so we are in even in my lifetime, right? A few short decades, there's been huge progress. But
True.
still, for us, it's not happening fast enough.
Totally. I know. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's interesting. I think we're at an era too where women are getting taken more seriously as business owners too, and changing. I find in the coaching industry especially, and people working through like evaluating themselves, and getting to the point where they can actually like claim like, oh, I can actually charge a rate for this transformation I offer that actually is in alignment with like how powerful it is, and also like is sustainable, right? So, like we're moving past the days in our businesses of just saying, well, I'll just take what I can get, I think that's also a very important thing that's showing up too, is that ability for women to say, no, I want to be well sustained. I want to have a really great life. I want to do the things that I enjoy. I want to feel free. I want freedom, and I think that's a really interesting thing about this sea change in women owning businesses as well. Yeah, it's a really powerful time, and it's very exciting to witness. And I mean, of course, there's so many, obviously, like that's like I work with a lot of healers and coaches, but there's so much else that women are doing, businesses that they're starting. It's really quite amazing. Like, and like you say, they can take their value, I think that for whatever reason, women will really like hold to their values in the running of a company a lot of the times. And of course, not everybody will, but there is a sense that we actually like want things to be purposeful and be a part of growing awareness and healing somehow. In any kind of business, you can bring something into it that is about that, right?
Yeah. I mean, in fact, we have to evolve business because we've seen we've seen what the typical business model is, and you're absolutely right. A lot of us come into that and they're like, well, I don't even know if I want to get into business if it means I have to do ick and ick, right? So there's an evolution, really. I mean, I believe there's an evolutionary impulse that lives through everything. And business isn't excluded from that. So we're on that evolving edge of business and what it can stand for, and what being in business can look like. And that it doesn't need to look like workaholism and burnout. We can make it look like how we want it to look like for us. And that's a really incredible place to be in.
Yeah, it is crazy, like, how we have so much more power than I think we always give ourselves credit for. And I do see that, I think that there are a lot of women who are leaving 9 to 5 jobs and coming to this place of like, I just can't live this paradigm anymore. I have to create a new paradigm. How am I going to do that? And being in communities like yours where that is like there's so much support for actually like really being intentional about what you want to create in your life, and actually giving yourself permission to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then being in a community that supports that, right? And so you're modeling that. People around in a group with you are probably, there's this like energy of like, oh, we're all actually giving ourselves the freedom to do this, and just that powerful momentum that comes out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just so great that we have all these opportunities these days to find communities like yours and to get into community and be supported and actually get that like divine permission slip to actually make something really revolutionary. We can forget that when we're in our businesses, that maybe we're doing something that's actually kind of revolutionary, just like the simple decisions we make.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's good to step back and realize that. Um, Gosh, yeah, that you're actually reminding me now, just of a few years ago, I ended up having a connection call, discovery call with a woman in Russia. And wow, did that conversation with her open my eyes for me to realize how much of a radical revolutionary I was, certainly not so much in her eyes, but still, but it's like certainly in the eyes of the Russian government. Like she was telling me that she's like, it was amazing that I was even able to catch your live streams because our government has been limiting like Facebook.
Wow.
And I don't know if it's been overturned, but like Russia about 10 years ago or maybe 12 years ago, like re-implemented the criminalization of homosexuality as a law. Like it had been decriminalized, and then it was like it became illegal again to be gay.
Wow.
And this was before I was in work, so it's like, yeah, again, these growing pains, right? And I'm not anti-Russia. I have lots of, Russian friends, but to be fair, those Russian friends have left Russia and are living in different countries. But
Yeah.
I love my Russian witch friends. And anyway, yeah, just we can forget, anything can become normal. Isn't that right, Theresa? Like, and so yeah, like me being a queer witch, all about the environment, and like I just wake up in the morning, I look at myself and I think like that's just normal, that's just me. I forget that, yeah, even who I am is challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
And I can forget that, yeah, my work and even how I'm running my business, like what we were talking about before, is actually revolutionary. So really good point, like to step back and give ourselves a pat on the back sometimes when we can realize like, actually, I'm doing things in a really different way, and yay, good.
Yeah. And we sometimes forget like the how hard it was in the beginning to fully claim that. Like that felt really scary. And now it's like just a part of our DNA and part of like how we show up all the time, and always thinking that way of like, how can I innovate a little more? How can I get in alignment with myself and what I really want and what's healthy, like what actually gives me juice in life, what makes me excited to wake up? Like what a daring question, like can my job make me excited to wake up every day? Good Lord, is that possible?
Right. Yeah.
And claiming that, so I think it's kind of amazing that this is the revolution, I think, that's happening. Like more women are saying, actually, we don't have to suffer the doldrums. Like obviously we're going to work hard sometimes, we're going to have challenges, it's going to be uh we're going to have like really big challenges in our businesses that are going to scare us and freak us out a little bit sometimes, but we can move through that and also like claim the beauty and peace and wholeness, and actually like design our life and our business to accommodate that or allow for that. Yeah. And I feel like you carry that really well.
Aw, thank you, Theresa.
Yeah. I can you exude like that serenity, that comes from like really showing up with your values and actually like designing things the way it's meant to work, right? For us to be in flow. with ourselves and our businesses. I feel like I get that vibe from you, very much so.
I appreciate you saying that, and it's good for me to reflect on that. I still have days where it's like I think, like, am I allowed to just have this, like, such a relaxing day? Like, you know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's funny. So really that comes back to us giving ourselves permission. And that's actually one of my top tips for helping women like get over their fears, overcome their fears of speaking and using their voices and even like very tangibly like using speaking as a way to grow their
Mhm.
business, right? When
Mhm.
if you're at that point, if you feel like that one of the number one tips is that you have to give yourself permission to do that.
Mhm.
No one else is going to give you that
Mhm.
permission slip.
Mhm. Mhm.
And and no one else is going to give you permission to create that work-life balance or that business model that is the one that is going to really best serve you. You need to claim it.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 Imagine a huge part of your work is helping women overcome their fear of speaking up and sharing their message. And like you say, giving yourself permission is a big part of it. Are there other things that you think are a part of doing that, of allowing oneself to actually overcome that fear of speaking up and share your message?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a bit of a trinity, sometimes a quad. But today I'll say I'll share three. One being give yourself permission,
Mhm.
right? You have to give yourself permission. And and because a lot of us have this wounded healer archetype, there's
Mhm.
kind of an archetype of the wounded healer, and this archetype, this that energy, the wounded healer, is the one that will always tell you, the inner voice that will always say, I'm not ready,
Mhm.
or I'm not healed enough to do the work that I want to do.
Mhm.
I need to take another course. I need to whatever procrastinate learning, right? Um, so just really looking at those ways that you hold yourself back and what they are, and really facing them, and just giving yourself permission to
Mhm.
to to speak up, to
Mhm.
teach, to guide, to coach, to heal,
Mhm.
right? The second one is to claim your expertise.
Mhm.
And this was a real tricky one in the beginning for me. I actually didn't like the word expertise. I felt like even the expert and the expertise felt like, I don't know, felt a bit of that kind of authority and the and the
Mhm.
and the hierarchy, and that, this is something that, again, a lot of business coaches said, like, like establish your authority, claim your authority.
Mhm.
And I was all like, what's that about? But for me, and why this is so important, is just really like know your genius,
Mhm.
know your passion,
Mhm.
know your thing that you could just talk on and on about, because we are talking about speaking, right? When you want to
Mhm.
talk, speaking, that's your expertise, right?
Mhm.
That's your zone of genius,
Mhm.
right? And when you are really clear on like your expertise, then all of those nervousness or those doubts that come up can be there, but it's not going to take away from the fact that you really know what you are all about. The question that really changed my life around this is that if you're like me and you're thinking, well, I don't know if I'd call myself an expert, or all that. Like I said, it's really also about passion. But
Mhm.
here's the question: ask yourself, what do you want to be known for?
Mhm. Mhm.
That question changed my life, because I was like, oh, well, I can easily answer that question. I want to be known for divine feminine spirituality, archetypes, and voice, like sacred voice and all that. I kid you not, within 2 months, I think it was so quick. It was like within 2 months of me, like, yes, this is what I want to be known for. This is helping me claim my expertise. And this was years ago, again, in the beginning of my business. I was journaling on it, right? doing all my work. Within 2 months, I had someone introduce me as an expert on divine feminine archetypes. And I was like, what just happened? But it was the power of that work, right? And then just really claiming it and saying, yeah, I want to be known for this. And so claiming that, what you want to be known for, claiming your expertise. And then honestly, the third tip is leap before you're ready, right? Like just start, because your confidence and your clarity will actually come from action. But we convince ourselves that we need to have the confidence or the clarity first before we take action. You will be waiting a long time, right?
Yeah.
So leap before you're ready, so that you just start talking about it, that you press that, live button. If you're doing something, whatever it is, leap before you're ready, because you will gain the confidence from you doing it. You will gain the clarity about your message, about your expertise, or, or how to best talk to your potential clients in your community. You will gain all that from doing it, not the other way around. You don't need to have that all figured out before you start. So leap before you're ready.
That's some of the best advice.
It's hard and scary, but really it's like, do it.
Yeah, like you're totally right. You will not necessarily wake up confident one day and ready to do it. I mean, we sometimes wake up in our and on the good side of the bed one day and we're like, today I feel a little more courageous, I can do this. But like, if you feel that, go do it right now. Don't like wait till tomorrow, but yeah, you're always going to feel butterflies, when you're starting something new. It's just normal. And yeah, waiting around for it to feel easy it just doesn't necessarily work that way. It doesn't. You have to kind of go uncertain, and take that, like you said, take that leap, take the chance, just go for it. Cause that's how everyone does it, as far as I know.
Definitely. And I think just understanding that switch is helpful, that it's like, no, you don't wait for the clarity before you act.
Yes.
The clarity comes from you taking action, right? The confidence comes from that.
Yes.
I think that that's really helpful. And yeah, I still get butterflies. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, that means that you care. And it's like, that's a normal nervous system response. And then, but it's like, but knowing that you breathe through it, coming back to knowing, okay, this isn't about me. I'm a contributing voice, is something bigger, like my bigger mission, the bigger movement. And and there's also something that in my training as a priestess is that we really become a channel. And I don't even mean channeling, like I don't mean mediumship, but the same idea, that it's like, when we remember that we're a channel for this to flow through, and it comes out, it flows through in words, but it's also very energetic in like how you show up, then really remembering that how you say something is so much more important than the exact words of what you say. That famous quote, and I'm forgetting who said it, but it's like, people will forget what you said. They will remember how you made them feel. Yeah.
That's really true. Yeah. You're spot on. And that is such a great thing to remember when you're going into something, because you come in from an authentic, genuine place, and that, I don't know, like, yeah, like you said, the words don't have to be just right. There's something about how you bring the information forward that is so resonant in and of itself, that like people get it, and yeah, you don't have to have it perfect. And in time, you'll get better at like how you say stuff and how you show up and the little nuances of, doing things and being in your body,
you get more and more confidence from doing it, being in the action of it. Yeah. We can't law of attraction our way to confidence.
No,
right?
No.
We have to
experience.
Pull up the sleeves and actually do some work.
Yeah. Well, I also like that you say that clarity comes through action. I do feel like a lot of spiritual people wait for clarity to arrive, and I think sometimes there are times where we're processing something and we're working through something, and it does take time for clarity to emerge. But too often we wait so long and we miss our moment, and now we're on to something new, and we always think, well, I'm just waiting for that perfect thing to come. I'm like, well, you had three perfect things you could have been doing in the interim. If you just like said, you know what, I'm going to try something out and see what happens next, and then I'm going to go with that and try something else, and like, you'd be surprised what you got done and where you went and who you met and how much money you made, like, you got to give it a chance. You got to, and Spirit's like, oh, you did something, here's something else, rather than being like, oh, why is Spirit not actually giving me a message? You're like, well, just, you had a little insight, work with that. And instead of expecting like a big clear vision to come in, it's like, no, I have a little idea, let me take that somewhere and see what happens. I think, we got to get more into the habit of doing that if we're going to grow things to the level that we want them to be.
Yeah. Follow those breadcrumbs from Spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. And take action on them.
And take action.
Yeah. Well, this has been beautiful. Yeah, I feel like everything you're saying is so important right now. And it does lead to like having a really yummy relationship with your business, and feeling more impactful and feeling like you're really part of healing the planet, when you can step into your values, own your voice, like it just, you get to be a part of the big action that's going on right now, and that can be so enlivening and liberating to know that you're doing that, and it changes the whole dynamic of how you experience life, I think. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have this lovely free gift you're sharing, this archetypes quiz. Can you share more about that with us?
Yeah. So I have a free quiz, and it is, which of the 7 sacred feminine archetypes are you? Because of course the truth is that our leadership style, and even our communication and speaking style, is going to be influenced by your primary or strongest expressed archetypes. So this quiz will give you your primary archetype, which means, yeah, you're like your most expressed archetype. And this is my 777 system of the 7 chakras being associated with the 7 archetypes, and that each of them have a gift for you to claim. And so you receive also a goddess portal, which means like an example of a goddess that embodies that archetype that you can explore. Might be a new goddess guide for you. You'll also receive tips on how to activate or balance that chakra that's connected to your primary archetype. You get a lot of good information. Well, not only from the result, but in the 2 emails that follow if you confirm your subscription to get the in-depth info around the archetypal work and the chakras from that. And I want to say too, because I'm sure there's actually plenty of people here that have done my quiz. It's not new, it's been around for a while. My quiz is actually set up that you can do it multiple times. And if you've done it before, but you've never done it like as your opposite, that could be interesting. So you can respond as the total opposite of you, and then your result is your shadow archetype, or it's your least expressed archetype. It's the face of the divine that you kind of deny or never really let out to play. And that shadow archetype can be possibly even more illuminating for you in terms of, kind of, because it's what we don't usually look at, right? It's more the subconscious. But still, take the quiz first, getting your primary one, and then of course, if you are keen, if you just really love this kind of psychological spirituality, then you can do it again as the total opposite.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Oh, I love it. Yeah, it is really interesting to like look at how I don't know, like the things we suppress that, I have an alter ego that I play with. Her name is Lady Doom, and I get to like play with, I have a costume and a wig and everything, and I wear white makeup, and it's fun to like go into like, Oh, yes, these are all the things that, I might be repressing. I'm going to express that. It's very powerful to claim shadow aspects of ourselves, I think, through archetypal work. So that's a very, very cool idea. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And it just, kind of final words around that is that this is why it's important for, like, say, okay, I'm speaking to the introverts here. Okay. I'm speaking to the introverts, right? Because a lot of more introverted people think like, well, I could never do video marketing, or I could never use speaking to grow my business, or do interviews like this, because we see often the more extroverted people, me, and they think, well, I could never look like that. Don't. Be you. Show up in your way, right? That you don't, don't try to copy me. This is again coming back to know your genius, know who you are, show up exactly in your frequency, and then that's what's genuine. So the archetypal work is helpful because, then you don't try to emulate someone or something that just really isn't you. There's one thing about knowing, like, okay, I know I got an inner wild woman, but I'm not really letting her out, and you want to let her out, well then heck yes, I'm all for that. But if it's just like, if you're a real nurturing, soft mother archetype that speaks more quietly and slowly, then be you.
Love it. Oh, I love it. That's so awesome. Yeah, archetype work is so powerful. I'm really excited you're sharing that. I'm looking forward to doing it myself. It sounds like so much fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Theresa.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. This has been such a beautiful time. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your energy and all the amazing work you're doing in the world for women. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Such a treat to have you here. And thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this energy and this experience with us and shining your light, sharing your voice. We all do it together and everyone is needed. So I really appreciate you coming to this event and bringing your soul's work forward with us. And if you want to stay connected with this community here in this event, beyond, there's a Facebook group called Soul Leaders and Visible Visionaries. We'd love to see you there. Share what you're doing with your work. We'd love to hear from you. And there's so many other great talks that we're going to share with you. I hope you get to just really dig in and enjoy some of these conversations, and really loving sharing this experience with you. Thank you for being here, and have a beautiful rest of your day.